Hello, this is Randy. Welcome back to another edition of Brain Break with Randy and Keitho. It's just me again. I wanted to tell you a little bit more about my experience in sales. I spent over 40 years in sales. During that period of time, I sold a lot of things, mostly chemicals, but I also sold insurance and investments for 4 or 5 years. I did water treatment for about 35 of those years. Really enjoyed that. Most companies, when they hire you, um, have built up a territory large enough that one man can't handle it effectively, or one woman, and so they need someone else to help them. So they split the territory. They hire somebody else and get them trained to handle that territory and take care of the customers. Back in the day, my day, that meant going out and a lot of windshield time, seeing people. When I was first hired by Procter and Gamble, they had a number of accounts for me to call on, but most of them really hadn't seen a rep. They'd heard from him on the phone, but he hadn't been able to go see them in a long time. So I was tasked to go see them on a regular basis and to encourage them to purchase our products. I would teach them how to merchandise, and some of the accounts I sold to were basically, they had a small warehouse and they were delivering out in the country to gas stations and hotels and people that were using cleaning products. Anyway, I built that territory up fairly well. Then they moved me into another unit, and I didn't particularly appreciate the managers I had. I think that was because my previous managers were so amazing and had built such a good relationship with my family and I. So I got out of working for Procter and Gamble and went into the insurance business with a friend for 4 or 5 years. And then we were trying to adopt a little girl, and that didn't go so well. So we decided that I would look for a job and maybe sell off the business I'd built. I was able to do that, at least on the group insurance, which was health insurance and pensions and things like that. Then I got a job with a chemical company. They wanted somebody that understood chlorine and could work with it safely. They had just gotten a big account in Phoenix where they were delivering truckloads of chlorine, which was 18 to 20 tons at a time of liquid chlorine. We would compress it and deliver it and then put it into their tanks. And after a while, actually, I think they were we started using their tankers. Then they wanted us to use our tankers. We actually purchased their tankers because they didn't want the liability anymore. I was with them for about 16 years, and I built that company up from, $200,000 in sales to over $20 million in sales in my personal territory every year. The problem was the owner had turned it over to his son, and his son had some other ideas about how to run things. Whereas with the owner, as long as I was making money, kind of let me be. The owner's son kind of wanted everything to be done his way. And some of the ways he was doing things was hurting me financially because he was trying to control a lot of things, which it was maybe cutting costs, but it was also impacting quality of service, not quality of product yet. But I was worried. So anyway, went to work for another company, and they gave me a list of, I think it was 38 accounts, and they had 2 accounts. And of that 38 on the list, they were just like notes from a newspaper. But I had a lot of success with that company because I put in a lot of windshield time and got to know the people and was able to make things work well for them. After about 5 years, they were bought out by another company, and the new company decided to let me go. And they spent the next 7 years trying to hire me back, and I didn't want any part of that. In fact, I finally had to get a friend of mine who was an attorney to write them a letter that said we would sue them if they continued to bother me either themselves or through a headhunter. I didn't really care what happened to them, but I know they'd let me go, and I didn't want to work with them after doing more work. I would have been okay if they'd have just let me do my job, but some bean counter made a decision. No offense, bean counters, but he'd made a decision that I was costing the company too much money. They realized their people couldn't do the job that I was doing. So I went to work for another company and eventually worked myself up to a position. By the way, they told me they had 2 accounts in the area, and both those accounts had disappeared. They weren't doing any business with us. So I built it up from nothing and had just an amazing territory. I really enjoyed working with these people. But the exciting and interesting thing about all this is I think that's the nature of work. You're hired to do something and you learn the position, you learn the job, and then your job is to do it better than anybody else has. Sometimes key people let you do that, and sometimes they don't. I worked for a company where, with all my sales experience, they didn't want my sales experience. They just wanted to turn me into a robot. And finally, after almost 2 years, I said, I can't do this. I sell more than anybody you've got on the floor. You're trying to change me to do it exactly the same way everybody else does, instead of me being able to go with my own instinct. And they said, that's right. I said, well, I guess it's not going to work. It didn't. We had a parting of the ways. They also didn't like me deviating from the script and telling customers personal stories. As you can tell, I'm full of stories, so that did very well. I did some consulting for a few years and also really enjoyed being a student teacher. And we need to try and always be better than we have been. And we need to take our knowledge and work it to be better. I am very excited about the opportunities I've had in my life. I mean, if anybody had told me when I was younger that I'd be a good salesman, I probably wouldn't have believed them. I was kind of shy. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm not the kind of guy that goes into a party and starts telling jokes and stories. But, you put me with a couple of customers and I can teach them about how a water treatment plant should work. I've been told that I had been to more water and wastewater plants than anybody that ever met. I literally got paid to do that. Now, when 9/11 came along, all of a sudden we had to have appointments. But before that, it was kind of fun because we could just literally walk in the door, tour a plant with an employee, sometimes not, get an idea of how the plant worked. We could see things that weren't working, would explain those things. I'm very excited for the opportunity I've had of being in sales. It was a good way to take care of my family. The only regret I have is how much time I had to spend away from my family because of the type of industry I was in. But that's the only regret. I'm grateful that my wife was able to raise a great family for us, and that I've got wonderful kids and grandkids. So thanks for joining me, letting me tell you a little bit more about me. I'm proud of the fact that my customers never thought of me as a salesman, but more of a consultant and technician, somebody that could make their plants run better because I understood how they work. I always strive to do that. When I was first with Procter & Gamble, I met a technical sales rep. He was amazing. He showed me how to tell how the shortening had been overused. It was time to change it. He showed me how to teach customers the same process. He showed me how to brew coffee so that it was better than anybody else's. One funny story I have about that is we represented Folgers for food service and went to ZCMI, which is owned by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And they sold coffee in their restaurants. And they were using Farmer Brothers. So we showed them how our coffee was darker, smelled more like coffee. They didn't need to use as much. We would sell them about 1.1 ounces to give them the same pot with the number of cups in it as their 1.5 ounce to 2 ounce package. This same technical salesman, now there were 4 people in the room and my friend who was the technical salesman who'd come in to brew the coffee for us. They asked us, what should we do? Turned to Joe, and Joe, without missing a beat, says, well, personally, he's got a cup of Farmer Brothers in one hand and a cup of Folgers in the other hand. He says, personally, sipping from the Folgers, he says, I prefer Folgers. He says, and I think your market does too. Takes another sip. That's all he said. So they made the switch to Folgers. It saved them money. It made them money because they were paying less for that pot of coffee, as well as selling more coffee because it was a better brand. So anyway, sales was fun. It was exciting. Every day was different. Hope you guys have a great day. Thank you for spending a little part of your day with me. Have a great day.